Hello. Thank you guys for joining what I hope to be a short talk, discussion. I can remember my PTA professor back in school saying that therapy is very simple. We tighten what's loose and we loosen what's tight. And I thought that was such a simplistic model, and I love simple. So I'm like, all right, that makes sense. If there's an area that's supposed to move and it doesn't, we find ways to get it moving. And if there's areas that are moving and they're not supposed to, then we find a way to get them tight again. Basic concept of the physiological body. And but what brings us up is this morning I'm juicing celery, and I'm watching as I'm putting the celery in. The thing is churning and it's grinding it up and it's processing it and it's spitting it out. And then when I stop putting more stuff into the juicer, obviously after a little while it's processed it all, and it's got nothing else to chew up, got nothing else to keep it going. So when it comes to the physiological body, the same principle applies, where when I'm working on someone, there's areas where there's tension and I find ways to release it. And there's other areas that are underactive. We find ways to tighten it, to activate it. Well, this carries over into other areas of life that physiologically things have happened. Either I work a particular job, say I'm a server, for example, so I spend a lot of time doing this. Well, great. Well, the musculature in which makes this happen is going to be prone to increased activation. Whereas, say, maybe musculature on this side of the body that isn't used to that, it's not going to have that same holding pattern. It tends to be a little more on the underactive side. So, which, as long as I'm a server, this action is great. My ability to carry my trays without dropping food, without dropping soup, is a good thing. But I'm no longer in that profession. And this holding pattern is still what my musculature wants to do. So this pattern is no longer serving for the way in which I'm living my life, the things I'm doing today. It served me when I was serving, but now that I am no longer in that field, now this particular holding pattern is a detriment. And so I need to focus on ways to release and return that musculature, that physiology to a more functional pattern. Well, this simple concept, the truths that are held within the body can get carried over to the other areas of the body, the mind. So this one particular pattern of this holding pattern, we can carry this over back to my celery. That when I was serving, it used to frustrate me with the other servers that if they got a lousy tip, they would complain about, they come in the kitchen and be like, oh, they only left me 10% or left me nothing, blah, blah, blah. They complain about it, they go tell this person, they go tell this person, they might, text their friend or whatever, they might spend, 10 minutes of their night complaining about this table that didn't leave them a tip. And I would often tell them that you're doing yourself a disservice by putting so much energy into this table that's already gone and the tip or lack thereof that they had left you. In this profession, it's on to the next one. And this carries over on the other end of the spectrum too, to where even when folks get like a really great tip, they would go in the back, they would tell their friends, they might even text somebody, take a picture, blah, blah, blah. 10 minutes go by of them being so whatever, excited, happy about this tip that was left to them. Both situations, what ends up happening, the rest of their night ends up going awry because they're so fixated and focused on this one particular tip. And so what I would often tell the younger servers, I would say, don't even look at your money till the end of the night. It doesn't matter if you got $1 off the table or if you got $100 off that table. So what matters at the end of the night, how much money you end up having, is the money you make for the night. But if you're looking at each individual one and then you're dictating your next table, your next interaction based off the last one. So you get stiffed on this table. Well, your next engagement, you walk up, what can I get you? You're not going to tip me anyways. This is how we carry these patterns into our future events. So because of something that happened over here, I'm now carrying that over here into these engagements, which these engagements have nothing to do with those engagements, except for me and me carrying them into that. And there's the ways in which, as humans, we cultivate our own suffering. We find ways of carrying things we like and don't like, things that are good, bad, whatever, that happen over here. We drag that shit over here and dump it on the new experience and wonder why this experience is the same as all the other experiences. This is one of the ways in which the Buddha expressed that life is suffering. This doesn't mean that like all life is suffering, there's no point. This means simply that in this life, we create our suffering through our mind. So, with coming back to the celery, I like how juicing celery gets this stuff to pop up in my head. That when it comes to these experiences, if I can stop giving something that happened over here the energy it needs to persist, guess what's going to happen to that event? It's going to dwindle, it's going to die. That event that happened way over here is not going to be able to be carried over here into my future events, into my current life. But the thing is that as humans, as thinking, as judging creatures, we carry these events in our minds throughout our entire life. And we get into our adulthood and we're very heavy, physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And we do ourselves a disservice by this. So instead, learning to not give the things the mental energy they require to persist will allow us to let these things go. There's meditations based around this concept that are deeply healing. But as individuals, this process of surrendering to the present moment and leaving the past in the past, leaving the future in the future is one of these deeply powerful concepts that we can all benefit from and become better versions of ourselves by attempting to practice this. So when we, in my life in recovery, we have so many folks that have triggers, and I can remember early on in recovery, not really grasping that concept. I got that there's triggers, there's things that make you think about getting high, or things that make you think about your ex or whatnot. I understood the concept, but I was already a part of some meditation practices which focused on not giving those particular thoughts the energy they need to persist. So in my early recovery, I didn't have moments of being triggered. Now, it's not to say that I didn't have situations where I wanted to have a drink or have a smoke or something, certain situations, experiences. But in this context, I'm speaking as far as the mental triggers that cause us to fluctuate inside to where we're like, feel like we're about to explode, we're not sure what to do with ourselves, blah, blah, blah. This is when we have allowed events from the past to marinate and to sit and to dwell within us, and the energy they need to do that comes from our own mind, giving it that persistent energy to keep going. So this is where the Vipassana styles focus on releasing the energy, the mental energy to keep these things going. Now, some folks say, oh yeah, but with traumas, with whatever, a lot of these things are too difficult to just release, to just let go. That's why you don't start with those experiences. You start with very subtle, with very small experiences. So in physical therapy, we do the same thing. If somebody can't walk, we don't just tell them to stand up and walk and just don't fall. No, we start with sitting. We start with challenging your balance in sitting. We start with getting you unstable in sitting. We start you in standing. We start with getting you unstable in standing. We start with getting you on one leg in standing. We focus on strengthening the individual aspects that lead to the walking. And gradually we get to the walking, but even as we lose our balance in these areas, we return to center. We return. So this concept of releasing the mental charge around particular events, experiences, the practice here would be starting with something more simple. Start with something that you can refrain from adding any mental energy around. Refrain from some sort of experience where you can exert some conscious control over. So a lot of times we start with sensations within the body. We start with observing areas, observing sensations. And as these experiences come up, we don't give them the mental energy to persist. We notice them, but we continue to maintain some equanimity, some neutrality. And is what happens as you have these experiences, you start to notice that these things that arise pass away. This gets into this concept of anicca. This gets into this concept of impermanence. This gets into these natural laws of life that allow an individual, to allow a being to be more content in their life, in their world. That if you can allow events to arise and fall, which is the natural state of existence, then you no longer cling to these experiences, you no longer cling to these events, these things that are keeping you energetically drained. You're no longer clinging to these physical patterns that are keeping you drained. You're able to release them. You're able to let them go. You're able to allow your prana, you're able to allow your life force to flow. You're able to allow your musculature to contract and relax. You allow things to be as they are. This helps you come more into the present moment and release the things that are no longer serving you. So, and in saying this doesn't make things out to be like things aren't real or things are in your head or any of that stuff that folks would like to argue these concepts with. But it means that we are choosing on some level to allow them to persist. There's something in us, in our mind, that is encouraging these things to hang out, to hold on. And we are the ones, in fact, giving them the energy to be sustained. Because it takes a lot of energy to hold things back, to hold on, to keep a tissue contracted. Takes a lot of your energy. To keep a mental thought pattern or to keep an emotionally extreme situation locked into your body takes a lot of energy. And you can't help but be fatigued in these moments, in these situations. So focusing on the releasing of these experiences, events, is where real healing comes in. Now, the ways in which people go about this are there's all sorts of ways, but the essence is the same. We stop giving these experiences, events, the energy they need to continue. And is what happens once you stop doing that. Then they dissipate, they dwindle, they die, and you're allowed to be a little more free, allowed to be a little more yourself. So just like with the celery, if I stop putting celery in the blender, in the grinder, then the stuff gets processed. It's allowed to process. It's allowed to be ground up and filtered through. It doesn't persist. So that's my juice talk. I hope it made sense to you the way I intended it. And hopefully you'll be seeing more of me, and maybe I'll be seeing you.